Vav. That's the next letter, base resh Vav. The letter Vav has many important aspects. Like Das, which is godly knowledge, right? Das literally is knowledge itself, but in this case, it refers to the type of wisdom, the knowledge of what life is about according to God and how best to use it to accomplish the purpose of creation on the highest levels. And that's what we're struggling with all the time in everyday life. So it has, like Das, the Vav itself has a power to connect something and to unify, being a conjunction. In other words, the Vav itself is like the word but, right? It's always joining something else. It corresponds to the sphere of Yesod, which is associated with Yosef Tzaddik, the conduit through which God fed Egypt and Yaakov's family during the famine. Therefore, the letter of Vav is also associated with Geula, redemption, which was destined to come during the sixth millennium, which also corresponds to Yesod and the Vav. It is Mashiach ben Yosef, a descendant of Yosef, who will initiate the redemption process. The Vav not only connects thoughts, but worlds. The curtains of the Mishkan hung from hooks. The Mishkan was the actual building inside. Then you had the Olam Moed, the temple of meeting, which is all around a big huge temple. Inside you have the Chatzar, the courtyard where the altar was and the sacrifices took place. And around this huge area was a curtain that blocked the view from the outside to separate from the holy and the profane, and it hung from hooks, and the hooks themselves were called vavim, right? So from hooks called vavim, the worlds of Atzilus, Beriah, and Yetzirah, the higher spiritual worlds, were on the inside, and the everyday will of Asiya was on the outside. There are diagrams to explain this. This is a little abstract right now, but the concept, basically the idea that Vavim connected the outside world. The Vavim that's holding the curtains up, even though there was a separation of the curtain, in a sense, they connected the spiritual world on the inside of the Mishkan with the everyday world on the outside. They were the connecting piece, just like between two words, right? You have a Vav to connect the two words of thoughts. Likewise, the Vavs holding up the curtains also connected the two worlds. So it is a Vav that connects the upper Yud to the lower Yud to create the letter Aleph. And in Aleph, you have a Yud on top, you have the Vav between, and then you have a Yud below, right, to make the Aleph, which stands for God, one, and has a gematria of Yud Ke Vav Ke. The Aleph is everything and points to Shemaim. We'll get to that, Bezrat Hashem, but the basic concept is that the Vav is connecting the two worlds, because the Yud on top, we'll explain it right now, right? The two Yuds, the upper one and the lower one, correspond to two Chachmas. The upper Chachma, the level of the Shema Yisrael, the angelic clarity of God, and the lower Chachma, Malchus, the level of Baruch Shem Kavod, and the world of man. So you have the Aleph, you have the Vav between, you have the Yud on top, that corresponds to the world of the angels, Shemaim, heaven. And then you have the Yud below in the Aleph, which corresponds to our world. The Aleph itself represents both worlds. What connects them? The letter Vav. The Vav itself is connecting the upper world with the lower world. Similarly, the Sulam, the ladder in Yaakov's dream, was the Vav that joins heaven and earth. That's what a ladder looks like. It's a long, thin, tall thing that is a Vav, in essence, and it connected Shemaim and earth in the dream, right? Zerampin, which connects to the Bina of the Malchus. When the Torah says it is not in heaven that you say, who will go up to heaven for us and get it for us, to tell it to us so we can fill it, Rashi explains it is not in heaven, because if it was in heaven, you'd have to climb up after it in order to learn it. It's talking later on, Parshat Nitzavim, when God is telling us to choose life that we may live, that we should learn Torah, and he emphasizes the fact that it's not far away. If Torah was in Shemaim, you still have to go get it, but you don't have to. It's down here on earth. If it was across the sea, you'd still have to go get it, but you don't have to. It's right next to you. How would you do it? I mean, it's fine. It's like a metaphor, it's an idea, emphasizing the need to learn Torah and how our obligation extends to such an extent, right? But they're still left with the question, how do we do that? How do we go into Shemayim to get it? Well, that's what Pardes is about, and that's what the Vav comes to teach us about. It means this: by accumulating das, one climbs the ladder from heaven to earth, from a lower level of spiritual consciousness to a higher one from which Torah came. The Vav also can travel time in a sense, connecting past to future, or future to past. A Vav at the beginning of a word can change it from future tense to past tense. For example, the word Yomar means and he will say. But with a Vav before the Yud, the word instead means and he said. So just the Vav alone changes the exact same word into a different tense. And if Yaakov had had his way, the first letter of Baruch Shem would not be a vase, as we mentioned before. He wanted to give Baruch Shem 25 letters, just like the Shema, for very deep reasons. Which letter was missing? If you look at the words Baruch Shem Kavod, right, every letter is there. So what are you going to add? So the only thing that he could add would be a Vav in front of the base of Baruch Shem. So then we would say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, U Baruch Shem Kavod Machuso Le'olam Ve'ed. Not heroes of the Lord, and then Baruch Shem. It would be a continuation, meaning that the clarity of the unity of God that the angels have, it's down here too. We will have it as well. And probably in Muslim Mashiach, that's what's going to happen. Probably we'll add the Vav to Baruch Shem Kavod, and we'll say Shema Yisrael U Baruch Shem Kavod Machveh, because now the world will be connected on the same level of intellectual and spiritual clarity. But as the following testifies, it wasn't, at least not yet, possible. And we see it from when Yaakov, in fact, questioned his son, the 12 tribes, about their level of Yichud Hashem. The Torah says that Yaakov, in Parshas V'yechi, before he died, he wanted to reveal to his sons the end of days, and then the prophet he left them. The Torah doesn't explain why. It barely says anything. It just goes to the next topic. The Gemara asks the question. The Gemara says, why is it that Yaakov, in fact, lost the prophecy? So the Gemara goes into more detail, the conversation behind the conversation, and says the following thing. Yaakov said, perhaps, God forbid, there is something unfit from my bed, just as Yishmael was born to Abraham and Esau to my father Yitzchak. And it says, giving birth to a son, that is literally becomes the enemy of the Jewish people. And it's a pagam of Abraham to some degree. It's a pagam of Yitzchak. Maybe I have the same problem. I have 12 sons. I thought you're all kosher, you're all tzaddikim. Maybe someone's not. That's why the prophecy was left, and that's why God took it away from me, right? But his sons answered back, and they said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, meaning just as in your heart there's only one, so too in our hearts there's only one. So the brothers are answering back and saying, by saying the Shema, no, don't worry, we worked it all out. We understand now that God is the only one. When we sold Yosef, we were unclear about. We knew it was true, but it wasn't real to us. But now it's real to us. Yaakov says, I don't think so. And we see this, by the way, because later on, when it come after Yaakov dies, the brothers come to Yosef and say to him, our father told us to tell you not to harm us, be a messenger, right? And Yosef knows that's not true. And so he says, Tachas and Elokim Anochi, am I in place of God? Didn't you learn anything from all of this? Is God still some distant reality to you? But like when you sold me back in Shechem, now we're in big trouble. Now comes the Egyptian exile. So that's what it says. At the time, Yaakov said, Baruch Shem Kavod Machsim, meaning he didn't put the Vav there, meaning, yeah, close, but not quite. Still work to do. So the Zohar explains and adds, Yaakov had wanted to rectify the Malchus below, but so the lower unity, and establish the unity of the 24 letters, which is Baruch Shem Kavod, right? He did not complete it with 25 letters because the Mishkan had yet to be built. That level of unity of God's name was not achieved until much later, when the mission was finally completed at Har Sinai on the 25th day of Kislev. So, what we see and we get from this is that the Vav itself represents the continuity of that clarity of God's existence that the angels have applied in our world. A person has it for themselves. Mankind will have it in the Messianic era. We had it in the Mishkan, because in the Mishkan, miracles took place, the service of God. It was very hard to deny the reality of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, to be in any doubt about it, because it's right in front of us the entire time. So that, in that respect, Baruch Shem Kavod became fulfilled, and The Zohar says that's why the first pasuk of Yikra, after it says V'yikra Hashem el Moshe, has 25 letters to allude to the 25 letters that Baruch Shem Kavod was supposed to have. So the Vav, therefore, is hugely important in terms of Geula, in terms of personal rectification, in terms of connecting the upper world with the lower world, because without it, it's not the same reality.